Do you long to know your destiny? Does your passion align with your purpose? Do you want the Word of God active and alive in your life? Join Susan as she inspires, empowers, and brings truth to people from all walks of life, causing them to break through and arise into their destiny.
I won't look back, follow you, I will arise.
Hello and welcome to Arise with Susan. I am Susan Cheatham, your host. Thank you for joining me today. I am so excited about my program, as I always am. Now, today I'm going to be talking about the City Council and what it means to our lives. And many of you may have watched my interview with City Council member Nora Ellen. Now, she briefly discussed on my show that the function of the City Council, and it's so much, and it's so important and vital in our lives. Well, after the show, we got to talking, and she said, well, you know, Susan, that every city council meeting opens up with prayer. And if you're an ordained minister, you can do that. And so I tell you what, I thought about that. And after that interview, or actually during that interview, my heart was stirred to be involved in my community as a minister in some way. So I called the city of Buckeye, and I talked to a gal named Maria, and she directed me. She was great. Actually, she was very excited that I called, and she said, you know, she said, we need someone to open up our first meeting of the year. Would you like to do that? And I'm like, oh, yes, I will do that. And I'll tell you what, I have never done that in my life, and I did it afraid. I did it afraid. But God gave me what to decree over my city. And I have done it several times. I've prayed several times, and I get to decree God's will over my city. And then as we do that, what happens? He releases the angels. It's amazing. I love doing it every time I go. I get blessed because I get to be involved somehow in my community as a minister of the gospel. So, and that brings me to this. Through this, I have met a gal named Michelle Hess. She is a city council member, and I have just enjoyed getting to know her. And that is my guest today on my show. A council member. I used to say councilwoman, but it's now council member, right?
They all work. I've heard councilwoman, council lady, council person. We kind of have fun with this sometimes.
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you do. But yes, and so I had it down as councilwoman, but as I read, I thought, oh my goodness, they're council members. So I wanted to be politically correct in this way. But anyhow, I want to tell you a little bit about Michelle, because you're amazing.
Oh,
I love her heart. I love what she is doing in her own community in the West Valley of Arizona. So, okay, Michelle Hess, she is an executive director for Leadership West and a Buckeye City Council member. Michelle is passionate about the West Valley of Arizona, and she truly is. And she leverages her leadership, networking, and problem-solving skills to help inspire and cultivate the leadership capital. And truly, she does. And Michelle, she has served on the Buckeye City Council since 2012, and as a representative of Buckeye's Council District 3. Wow. She is summa cum laude graduate of Grand Canyon University and
Lopes up.
Oh, that's so cute. Awesome. And she has a liberal arts degree in Christian studies and has received her master's in ministry from Johnson University. And there's so much more to her bio. But I want to get to the meat of the matter. She has truly been educated in leadership, and it's so important. Leadership is so important in our day and in this hour in which we live. Serving our community in the day, in the hour which we live is so important. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing for us. And I know at times it's a sacrifice, and it's an honor to have you on Arise with Susan. Thank you for coming.
I'm so grateful to be here with you and with all of you out there today. I just have to say thank you so much for coming out and praying over our council meetings. I remember you coming in for the first time. And I'm like, oh, we haven't seen her before, is my first thought. And just the power and the spirit that came in the room and just the boldness. It was wonderful. So I just can't thank you enough. And there were, most of the years I've been on the city council, we've begged people to come and pray.
Wow.
And in the first time, in the last about 6 months, we're actually a year out. And that is just such a blessing and a testament of what's going on and what's stirring in our city.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting. So thank you as well.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's an honor for me to do it. It's truly an honor for me to do it. And I'll tell you, when I go to sign up, I'm like, there's no more spots. Oh my gosh.
So different, right? than what it was.
The first time, I got, I'll do this, and this. There was so many spots. I'm like, okay, Lord, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited that people are being raised up because they care about their community.
Yes.
And that is, and we want to be an influence in our community, and that's one way we can.
Right.
So God is good. Okay, so today I want to talk about two things with you. One, about the function of the city council, because I think it needs to be brought out again. And the number two thing is how you are involved in teaching people and how to walk in leadership. Okay, so but let's begin. Tell us why that you chose to be in public office.
Okay, so I don't think I chose it at all. God chose me, and I really wouldn't have known even of this role. I've been raised all our life to serve. My mother would serve the church, she would serve the community, we would go to parades. It's just part of our DNA and what it meant to be part of our family. And my husband and I are both just servants at heart as well. So we just kind of did the same thing as soon as we moved to Buckeye. But we started to pray over our city. Before we even got to Buckeye, we just had it had a special place in our heart, and God called us there.
Yeah.
And so when we got there, I remember specifically one time we took a prayer walk as a family. We just thought we'd explore the Little Hills, which is now Skyline. And I remember praying that God would raise up leaders and that he would just make us a city on a hill. I remember that we were slipping and sliding because we had probably no business being up there with these 3 little kids. And years later, when he would start to kind of tug and say, you need to do this, he pointed back to this moment.
Wow. Okay.
That he was using me as my own answer to prayer.
Right on.
Which was just incredible. So my husband's part of the fire department, part of the fire service, and a lot of what you do is you serve through their charities. So I was involved through, the Halloween events and the food bank and things like that. And people just started saying, you should run for council. You should run for council. And I just kept saying, I don't even know what that means. Like, why would I run for something I don't even know what that is?
All right.
So we just kind of kept, okay, that's weird. Did somebody say that to you? And we just kind of kept putting it away. Okay, what do you want us to do with that, God? What do you want us to do with that? Sure. And we had a 2 at home, I think, at the time, the first time we started hearing it, and it just kept coming and just kept coming. And different people from different circles of friends and areas just kept saying, you should do this, you should do this. And we said, we should probably really pray about this. This is about the 6th or 7th time we've heard different people bring this up. So we prayed about it, and it was 3 years. Wow. 3 years of praying about it. I remember it was November, and I didn't know how to bring it up with my husband. How am I going to bring this up that I feel like God's actually asking me to step out in faith right now?
Wow.
And we were at dinner, and I just looked at him. I said, I think God's asking me to run this spring. And he just looks at me and said, I know.
Oh, I love that. Don't you
I
love
was
that?
just like, oh, thank you, Lord. That was probably the biggest, just making sure we were on the same page.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is the woman who had my position before loved the family dearly. I did not want to run against her. Okay. And I didn't know how that was going to resolve itself. And unbeknownst to me, she was sick. And so she wasn't going to run anyways. Gotcha. So even God made a way there.
Absolutely.
That we didn't have to create any awkwardness there. And so we stepped out on faith, and actually that councilwoman ended up passing away sooner than anybody had thought. And so then they were asking for people to that were interested, that didn't necessarily want to run, but were interested.
Yeah.
And at the time I was the only one that had pulled a packet to run. And there was, I think, 4 other ladies that were interested in just taking the position. And when it came out that nobody else was running, they said, let's just go ahead and give her the appointment. She's the only one running anyways. So that's how I got on the council. It was a several-year process.
Really?
And God using our own prayers. And I know there's a lot of other people praying out there for the city of Buckeye, but that's how I got there. Had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Right.
You have to get petitions signed, so you have to get X amount of signatures just to get on the ballot, which I'm doing now. And so people were like, why are you doing this? And I said, I just want to bring common sense, and I just feel like I need to follow God's lead.
Yes.
And I couldn't
So
promise
good.
anybody anything more than common sense, because that's all I could do. I didn't know what, I didn't ever want to promise things, and I didn't want to ever be so, I just wanted to go and bring common sense
Yeah, that's good.
and problem solving to office. And that's, to this day, that's still all I promise them is integrity, common sense, and problem solving.
And that's what most people want.
Right?
That's what they want their leaders. Are you kidding me? I love that. We need that. We need that. Because, especially in the day and the hour in which we live, we truly need those in office that are called. It's a calling.
It really
calling.
is. There's no way that I could do what I do without the strength of God, and just knowing when things get good, when things get bad, that He is sustaining it 100%. I couldn't do it without Him.
That's so good.
Really.
Amen to that. That is so good. So, what are the qualifications? I know you got to put out the signatures, get all the signatures, but what are the qualifications?
So for us, it's 18 years of old,
Okay.
a resident of the city of Buckeye for at least 12 months, and that's it. I think a high school diploma. Actually, I take that back. So there's 3 qualifications.
All right.
And that's it. What I would say to people is probably the same thing I'm saying. I don't know that you have to have any special qualifications, but other than the minimum, I would say you have to have integrity. I would never want to
Yes.
vote for somebody that didn't.
Exactly.
And you'd have to be willing to solve problems and to be able to kind of put aside agendas to do that.
Right.
And to be able
That's-
to problem solve and to think high level. We oftentimes we have to think at 30,000 foot constantly.
That's
We're
so good.
always trying to solve 5 to 50 years out.
Right.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, get this expectation that, like, well, why aren't you firing that person? Or why is that person allowed to? For me to govern well, I have to stay in my position.
It's good.
The moment I start doing somebody else's position is where I feel like I get on slippery ground. So
Yeah.
as much as I want to,
Yes.
at times, because everything in me wants to help,
Yes.
I have to really keep those boundaries. There's only been, I want to say 2 times since 2012 that I've had to push a little bit further and harder to get somebody answers, but I really have to respect those boundaries.
That's good. That's a good word. You know, and that's what we need to do. We need to stay in our own lane.
Yeah.
We need to stay in our own lane.
Yeah.
And then there's an anointing for you to be in this lane, not in this one.
Correct.
And you will get strategy. You will, that revelation, you will get what you need. Yeah. That's a good word right there. That's a good word, my friends. We got to grab onto that, stay in our own lane, okay? That is a God word. So, and I love the fact that your family was in unity. That is so, unity is so important these days. God blesses. Yes, it even says in His Word that He blesses unity, that commands a blessing. Unity commands a blessing. So I love that about that, what you said, that your husband's like, yeah.
You know, and 8 years has been hard. 8 years has been long.
Sure.
And if you've lived in Buckeye, there were some very rough years in 2016 and 2017, and it really wore heavy. We had some water issues that were in Buckeye, and we fixed them to the degree that we could, and we make the decisions that we can with the information we have, and I still can sleep well with what we did. But it was it took a toll. And even this go around, my husband's like, I want to protect you. He had an instinct to want to protect this time around. And so we took a long time to pray about it this time around. And I never want to hold on to anything, right? I always want to have an open palm of, okay, God, this is a power and authority you've given me, but I never want to do this, ever, ever. And the moment I start to feel it, I don't even want to go there.
That's so good.
So I wanted to make sure that we had, an open palm with going forward with another term. And we prayed about it. He didn't want me to go. if I'm being honest. He kind of was
Yes.
like, I just kind of want you to, I want to protect you. I want to make sure you rest and you don't overextend and all these things. And I said, but I feel like God's saying yes, as much as we want. Can we just agree to pray about it again?
Cool.
And we did. And within 5 hours, he called me and said, I just heard a message about the talents. And it never made sense to me why he got angry for burying the talent. And why was that a bad thing? And he said, here I am asking you to bury your talent when it was never mine to ask you to bury.
Wow.
And it's never yours.
So
That
good.
you can't bury what God's given you.
Yeah.
And so if God's asking you to run this many terms or the next or whatever, you need to use the talents that God has given you. And you go and run with it.
Right on.
Yeah, it was, wow.
You ask, you receive.
Amen. It was such a blessing. Yeah.
I love it. No, that is so good. That is so good because when we ask with a sincere heart, God is faithful, my friends. He's faithful to answer us. He will answer us. He's faithful every time. And now it may not be what we're expecting, but it's even better. It's beyond, and it's so worth it to press in to Him to get those answers. So we're gonna shift a little bit because I want to talk now. I know the role of the city council is to policies and procedures and stuff. Can you just touch on that just a little bit for us today? Can you?
Yes. Too often we think that people in Washington solve our problems. And in reality, we get so worked up and we get so involved and engaged of, do you know what so-and-so did in the Senate? And And I, whenever people get that way, I just look at them and I said, when was the last time the federal issue that they're talking about touched you?
All right.
And for some people it is. It might be a health issue. It might be. But do you realize that your trash touches you every day?
Yep.
At least twice a week when you pick up at least.
That's right. That's right.
Water, whether it comes from your city or not,
Yeah.
several times a day. Whether that pothole gets fixed, whether that stoplight is working, whether the street lights are working, your everyday city council and local policy impacts you so much more
Truly.
than what happens in Washington. And we we spend so much energy on the wrong things sometimes. I feel like
that's a good point. I love that. That's a good point.
so. We make sure that all of those immediate services are getting to you, whether it's the police, fire. We set the budget every year to make sure, and I know right now, pray for us. We're all dealing with this COVID-19.
Yes.
And we don't really know the impacts quite yet. We're making estimates, but those are changing daily.
Right.
So we have to have a budget by July 1. Or by our new fiscal year. And so we are really just, watching those numbers and trying to make the best decision that we can to make sure that your essential services are not impacted.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? Your
Right.
community services, that's a quality of life that we all have taken for granted, whether it's a parade or anything else
There
that has
you
come
go.
your way. We have, fitness in the park, things like that. Our senior center right now is closed.
Yeah.
We're still providing meals, but they don't have a place to go. And so those are some things that are impacting your local officials right now and are weighing very heavy on our hearts between how it impacts our residents, but also how is it going to impact our employees.
Yeah.
So,
true. Yeah. You have a lot to deal with.
There's a lot on our plate right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why you need a lot of prayer. And that's why I always pray for revelation for you guys. Always pray for strategy that God will give you the download. He truly will from heaven. He will. And what I love about your heart is that you have a heart for the people. And when I go in there, when I go into that city council room, I feel your hearts. Not only one, I feel it across the whole counter. That your hearts care for the people and they want to make the best decision for the people.
We truly do.
And I sense that. I truly sense that from as I have gone to the council meetings. And a lot of times I'll stay and I want to hear what's going on. And I love going. And I'm telling you what, that the youth council, I love the youth council and what they're doing.
I know, it's so
I'm
exciting.
like, I left there a couple of times actually, just so excited what they are doing. I'm telling you, they care. What they're making an impact for those who are in depression. I'm just like, they're creating things to help their own peers.
It just gives me hope.
Yes.
Every time we're turning around, everything's falling apart, and what's the next generation doing? And we have these 20 youth at least that I know that are sitting there making a difference right where they can, and they care. And I go, every time I start to get worried or anxious, they somehow show up right when I need to, and I'm like, God's got this.
Yes.
This next generation, they're not dropping the mantle. They're
No,
picking
they're
it
not.
up. They are picking it up and they're running with it.
They are, and they're doing it. They are developing things, their own programs and stuff. And I love that. I love your support of the young people. And truly, the young people are supported by this council. Yeah. And absolutely. I know it's across the board. And I know you are listening and watching, and you may not live in Arizona, but your city council where you are affects your life just as well. And I know that when I was talking to Nora, she said that it's just straight across all states. That the city council, the effects of the city council in your community is very important and vital to your lives. And they're speaking into the young people, and that's our next generation coming up. And that's what we need to do. We need to strengthen the young people in our community
and give them opportunities. That's exactly why we set this up. We need to give them opportunities to lead right where they are.
Yes.
And that's what we've done. That's what the youth council does.
Yeah, and I left that time. I'm like, wow. I did not know, and if I hadn't gone to the city council meeting and been involved, I would not have known the impact that they're making in their community, in their schools, and for the younger people under them.
Well, and they actually just got back from Washington, D.C.
Did you?
And they were advocating in D.C. for some of the youth issues that we're dealing with in the state too.
So
they're getting again these opportunities, that some of us don't even get.
Wow,
incredible.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate about you. We're going to segue into leadership, because it's so important to raise up good quality leaders, informed leaders. Now you're part of a leadership community. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. Yeah. So Leadership West is an organization that I belong to, and I'm now the executive director for. When I became a city council, I said, okay, great, now what? How do you do this? So how does this work? And one of the leadership programs I found was Leadership West. And I went through the program, and it really takes the issues that we're facing as a state and unpacks them onto a state and a regional level.
Right on.
And so a couple years back, I want to say 6, maybe even 8 years ago, Arizona did what we call is the Arizona We Want. And they went and they polled Arizonans, what did they interpret as the top issues facing Arizona, and what problems do we need to solve? And we have progress meters attached to that. Actually, it's a program out of, I believe, at ASU. And so we took those same issues and made sure that we were discussing them and what that looks like. So we inform our leaders. We give them a leadership tool every time that we meet. We meet once a month from October to May. And so we're sharpening their leadership skills, and then we impact an issue, because we believe you can be well informed but not know how to lead, or you can know how to lead and not be well informed. So we really want them into that what we call fourth quadrant leadership, where you are informed and you are honing your leadership skills, ability, and your network, right?
Yes,
we meet each other.
Absolutely.
So that's why this was formed. We formed 26 years ago because we had another recession, and at the time we had 5 freeways planned for the state of Arizona, and when we went through the recession, only 2 could go forward. There weren't enough West Valley leaders at the table that both freeways went to our East Valley, and really has shifted the growth of our state. As you can see, we ended up growing east to west, and stunted the growth in some ways to the West Valley. So the group at the time wanted to make sure that that never happened again on our watch. And they started to really come together, link arms, and say, how can we develop the next generation? And so we're now finishing up our 26th year, and We'll be recruiting for our 26th class. I love leadership, so this is one of the most exciting things to just come alongside whatever leader comes our way. For me, it's what is your next step? And that next step looks so different for every single one of the leaders in my class.
Really?
We
What
have
does that look
33 leaders. Yeah, so some are in the nonprofit sector, some are in city council, some are about ready to run for city council, some are just business leaders. I mean, one of the business leaders we have right now works for Duncan & Son.
Okay.
And to hear how she's leveraged the leadership tools that she's taken over the last year and how she's putting them into practice during this crisis has been just such a treat to be on the front row to watch her leverage and grow in her leadership, and how it was all positioned so that they were hearing that the Costco's weren't getting their supplies. So Duncan heard that, jumped in, contacted them, figured out, said, what do you need? And because of them, Prescott started to get their stuff. And then Tucson heard that Prescott got their stuff, so then they called. And so it's just been phenomenal to see these real-time and real-life stories that sometimes the leadership looks like that. Solving a problem on that level.
Yes.
And sometimes the problem is sitting in a council seat and solving the problem. So I just love that I get to step with these people each step of the way and as much as I can, and I just help them get to the next one, whatever that is.
And that's so important, especially in the day and the hour in which we live, because there's so many people. Well, I want to run for office. Well, do you know anything about this? You know, and you're providing leadership training so that they can, just like you said, yes, they can run, but let's get informed.
Right.
Let's get informed. Let's get some skills in place so that you can be successful. You are teaching people how to be successful.
Trying.
Yes, of course. Of course. That's exactly right. I'm an advocate for learning. I'm an advocate for just for those who would, they teach leadership, because there's structure. There is we can't just go out there and willy-nilly. Seriously, folks, we can't just go out. Well, I want to run for office. I'm a Christian and I want to be an influencer. Well, get some training. We would love that. Wouldn't you love that? But get some training. That's what I'm an advocate for.
And sometimes you can solve the problem faster and better somewhere else. Sometimes it's not just running for office. Sometimes my hands are tied.
Right.
And sometimes that's
so
not
good.
the way to solve it. You just never know.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Yeah. Well, you give God your yes.
Yes.
And he'll take it.
Yes.
He'll take that yes, and he'll work with that yes.
Often people say, how did you get in this? And I'm like, I said yes. That was really all it was. A long time ago, I just said yes. And the doors just kept getting opened and opened. And
That's what I certainly appreciate that about you and about those who are serving all over this nation on the city council. Thank you so much for what you do. We appreciate what you do, and we are praying for you. I've been praying for the city council, and I truly have, because I've learned some things. So anyway, is there something on your heart? We just have like about a minute and a half to go that you just want to speak to the camera and share with those who are watching.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. The joy of the Lord is your strength. I think it's our attitudes is going to get us through this time right now. And everybody's watching. I think these are flushing out leadership.
All right.
And these are, I think I heard just recently this week that this, a crisis is really a distraction.
Oh.
And it is our roles as leaders to stabilize and give traction to people.
So good.
And that's what we're trying to do right now. We're just trying to provide that traction and stability in people's lives. And regardless of how this is impacting you, we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
Our God is greater. God is bigger.
Yes.
I don't know what the future holds, but I know who my future holds it, right? So there's just such a peace about He's never failed me in the past, which means He won't fail me in the future.
That's right.
And so I just have a peace about that. We're just pushing in. I'm just spiritually, I feel there's such an excitement. There's something going on if we will just push in to what's next.
Yeah.
And so spiritually, I'm excited of what could be and what we're on the cusp of.
Come on.
And that's what I think
That's
as
so
a Christian leader, that's what excites me about right now. And I'm hopeful. I'm enjoying the time with my family. I'm just enjoying the things that we took for granted.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we'll take these things for granted anymore.
That's right.
The touch.
That's,
You and I didn't hug today.
No.
I normally hug.
Yeah, me
I won't
too.
take for granted that. It's
Right.
just
I do too. It's very hard.
It's very hard, but yeah,
Yeah.
these little
Yeah.
miracles every day.
Right. That's a good word. And just take this with you that God is working in the unseen realm.
Yes.
Even though we don't see him, even though we may not feel him, he is working in the unseen realm on our behalf.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching Arise with Susan today. And God bless you until the next time we're together.